Oh my gosh, you guys! Hello, YouTube Live! We're here! It's happening! Oh my gosh, welcome to Say What. So let's introduce ourselves. Let's have the epic Dr. Petra go first.
Hi, I'm so happy to be doing this. I do admit that I'm sitting here naked. This is the first time Shakira and Oscar have ever seen me without earrings. They don't even know what to do. I don't know what to do. I feel a little naked, but it's okay. So I'll tell you all about myself, and then I won't feel so naked anymore, right? So I am the co-spiritual director of CSLDallas in Dallas. There's so many things I could say about myself that it's pretty ridiculous. I love to teach. I love to speak. I love to talk about important things from a spiritual point of view. I've been practicing spirituality and meditation. You're not supposed to say for anything over 15 years, because if you say longer than that, it makes you look really old. So I'm going to say for 15 plus years and a really long time. And I love these two people, Oscar and Shakira, and I'm happy to be here today. So that's
I love it. Shakira, my love, you go.
Well, I'm Shakira Creatress Hudson. I'm a certified spiritual life coach and healer for createwithinme.com or Create Within Me Evolutionary Healing and Wellness. I work with spiritual warriors, healers, and seekers that are trying to tap into their power and redirect their lives so that they can give themselves permission to thrive so they can live a kick-ass, self-empowered life.
Love it.
I'm a mom. I am a wife to be, but I go, he's my husband anyway. We've been together so long. And I've been doing this work. I've been doing healing work and self-mastery work from anywhere between 7 years with the healing work and 4 years with self-mastery. And of course, I love Dr. Petra and Oscar also. So I'm happy to be here on Say What.
Love it, love it. I'm Oscar, and I am, I'm a musician. I am a full-time actor. I am a husband. I am a dad to 2 little dogs that I love. And all my life, I've been playing with this, with the law of attraction and cause and effect, and these spiritual laws that I had no idea that had names. I've just been kind of playing with and experimenting all my life, and things have popped up that have that I have spoken and it kind of came to life. And when I found this place, my head just kind of exploded, and I couldn't believe that this is a science. This is a philosophy. You can actually use it. It's actually practical and not just heady philosophy that we talk about. So I'm thrilled to be doing this work. I'm thrilled that I get to hang out with Petra and freaking Shakira. Every week we get to do this and talk about these amazing, amazing topics. So yeah, I'm super, super excited to be here. Okay, so we're gonna start every show with current events, things that are happening. We talk about this a lot about circumstances and perhaps conditions happening out here, and the important thing is really how do I respond to it? How do I react to it? So obviously, the major headline is, of course, the impeachment, the second impeachment. Of our ex-president Donald Trump. Thoughts? Help walk me through this, because I'm just like, I can't believe this is happening again.
Well, it's always an interesting conversation, right, to have about politics, because one of the things that I think is really true is that the political system is, of course, an outpicturing of consciousness. Everything is an outpicturing of consciousness, right? And so even the political divisiveness that we see in our nation today is an outpicturing of the consciousness that is created. And how is consciousness created, right? It's created by thoughts and feelings we have about things. It's created by the information that we take in and how that information is taken in, right? And then how we take that information up. Am I victimized by that information? Am I empowered by it? Am I excited by it? Right? And all of that is happening in our own individual lives, but it's also happening in living color, right, in the collective life of our nation. And of course, it's happening in other nations. It's happening in humanity. And and as challenging as it might be, and as whatever side of the fence you might be on, for, against, or God, really, do we have to talk about it one more time, right? For me, the thing that really allows me to walk through it is the idea that what I'm seeing is an outpicturing of consciousness. So my question to myself is, what am I contributing to that collective consciousness, right? Not just what do I need to do? It's not just only how I respond, but it's really, what am I contributing to collective consciousness?
Wow.
I see you shaking your head, Shakira. I see you.
Yeah, because so often we just think about, meditation and everything that we're doing, it stays on the mat with us. And it's like, it goes so much further than that. Yeah. Everything that I'm doing impacts each and every one. And if we take that mindset up and we look at how that affects our lives, it changes everything. It opens up a whole new door, whole new set of things to think about. So with this impeachment, I mean, where do you think that our minds have been? What part of the mat have we been on? And look at where it's gotten to. Why have we created a reality collectively that says that we have a president who just continues to affirm facts that are clearly not facts at all? His truth is very relative, okay? And he continues to do these things and then has to continuously be in a position of punishment or removal, or what type of consciousness have we been bringing to the table so far?
I think it's really interesting that, oh my gosh, my dogs have gone crazy. I think it's really interesting that what I love about CSLDallas is we have both sides. Well, actually, we have all sides, but we have Republican people in our community and we have liberals in our community, and I have a lot of Republican friends. And what I love is when you actually just sit down and talk to them and have a conversation, you realize the vitriol isn't there when it's a one-on-one conversation. It's because I mean, I approach it with love. I would never judge someone for their views because they had a different upbringing than me and different life experience. But when it's a one-on-one conversation, that sort of charge is taken out of it completely. And you can actually have a conversation and really understand each other. You may not agree, but at least you get to understand where that other person, where the other side is coming from. And I feel like we have that here at CSLDallas, and we have it in our real lives when we have those one-on-one conversations. Where's that disconnect from what we're doing in our everyday lives and talking to our neighbors who have different views to what's happening on the national stage, where we keep seeing images of all this toxicity and just bitterness about it? Like, where is that disconnect happening?
Yeah. Yeah. That, I think, is the question of the day, right? The question of the hour, the question of the year. What is that all about? And, and I even heard you, Oscar, say, so I have Republican friends and liberals. So normally what's the opposite of Republican is Democrat. And normally what's the opposite of liberal is conservative. And it was interesting that you mixed those two things, right? Because I think a big thing that has happened and is happening is what do I want to say? The vilifying of labels. What do I want to say? Simplifying of labels, making them very simplistic, right? And then vilifying them.
Yeah.
So first of all, we have parties who are vying for power, and it's all about power. And the way that you do your power is different than the way that I want to do my power, right? And so whoever's in power gets to have their way. So, right? So we can do with that game. But underneath that, which is something I've spent a lot of time thinking about. I spent a lot of time thinking about this, is the idea of liberal and conservative. So beyond being labels of a political perspective, let's just think about the words themselves. Conservative, conservation. Our entire environmental movement is based on conserving the resources of our planet. What does it mean to be conservative? It means to be thoughtful, to be careful, to be I don't want to use the word, to preserve right? What one has is to be conservative. Okay, great. I mean, I'm very conservative when it comes to the environmental movement. I want to preserve the planet. I want to preserve the well-being of my children. I want them to, my grandchildren, I want them to be able to go to the park and not worry about being kidnapped or, you know, or having some untoward thing happen. So I want to preserve a way of being engaged with each other that values and cares and protects other people. Now, liberal. Well, when you think about liberal, right, you go to a bar and there's a little liberal with the liquor that goes into the, right, liberal on the shot there, a little liberal on how much cheese you put on your pizza. You're like, ooh, man, I love that cheese. Let's go for it, right? So what does liberal in its essence actually mean? It means generous, generosity, a little bit more. It's a gracious generosity that says there's enough. It's not, doesn't come from lack, but it comes from this overflow of enough. And there's the savoring and the enjoying of this upwelling of generosity. Well, let me ask you, why wouldn't we want both generosity and preservation in a lovely harmonic balance, right? Because one without the other is just simply goes too far. That's the toxicity, right? And when we say that only this way is good or only this way is good, we've become completely toxic. Excuse me. And now I can say that, well, they're bad because my way's good and they're bad. And so if you believe that, you're bad. And now I vilified you. And now, oh my God, it's going to be so terrible, right? Whereas, you know, there's that middle place where they actually, and I don't want to say they compromise. I don't think it's compromise. I think there's a balance that when we're mature, we know when is preservation needed and when is liberality, generosity needed, right? And how are we applying it? And it's not this sort of blind following of a set of this is the way it is kind of thing. Yeah, anyway, I've spent a lot of time thinking about that.
Yeah, I love that. That's brilliant. I never thought of it just to go back to the actual word.
I say, yeah, Petra for president.
I know, right?
Can we just get those ideas to come together in integrity with the entire nation, please?
Right.
I love it.
Right. Yeah. And it's the whole thing about labeling, right? I mean, I know we need identity. It's important, it's important to feel like one has identity, but beyond that, there's actually, in a spiritual point of view, right? We release the stranglehold we have on an identity, and we celebrate the wholeness of the diversity, and that actually every piece adds, and the fullness of it. And sure, we have to arm wrestle. Okay, how much are we going to preserve? How generous are we going to actually be? Right? Of course, we have to arm wrestle. I mean, I arm wrestle with my wife about this all the time. Are we going to spend the money or not? Are we going to go on vacation or not? Right? I mean, two people are doing this constantly because we have slightly different ideas about, whatever it is. And yet somehow we've blown this so completely out of proportion. So I think what's happening with the impeachment, quite frankly, is this outpicturing of the vilifying, the labeling, and then the fear mongering that has happened. Right. And so both sides have to make the other side wrong. They have to, prove their rightness. Now, I also am fully willing to say that when you storm the Capitol and you support the storming of the Capitol, that you have gone beyond the pale. Right. That's just beyond the pale. Yeah. And yet that's the, to me, right, that's what happens when we're willing to go along with certain ways of thinking and behaving because we think somehow we're going to ride in on it and we're going to get the goods from it. and we don't pay attention to where the train is actually going.
Yeah.
And then we're all surprised. It's like the person who's bitching about their job all the time, and then they're stunned and they got fired. Right? It's like, hello,
Yeah.
the train long left the station.
Yeah.
So is it good that the impeachment is happening? Is it bad? Is it, unifying? Is it not unifying? I think all of that is posturing. I think that's all posturing. I think the point is we have to have these conversations.
Wow.
That's what I think.
I love it. I love it. You guys, so the whole point of what we're doing here is that we decided that we're not going to plan these talks. Every single Tuesday, we're just going to show up and we are just going to let this thing decide. What do we
But
talk
I want to
about?
know if it's not the Wheel of Fortune, what is it? The Wheel of what? Have we named it? The
We
Wheel
haven't
of
named it. What should we name it? The Wheel of...
To say what we,
this,
I mean,
the Wheel of Consciousness,
Ooh.
the wheel of I don't know, conversation, the Wheel of I don't know.
No, I like the Wheel of Consciousness. Let's just name it that.
consciousness sounds good.
So we got tons of topics. We got meditation, money, spirituality, mental health, career, relationships, social justice. We got all sorts of stuff on here. So we're going to roll it. And then whatever it lands on is what we're going to talk about today. So are you guys ready?
And then we're going to change them out, right?
Oh, yeah. So every week that we land on one, that gets erased and we fill in a new topic for next week.
So you can always chat and put in the chat a new topic that you want to hear about.
Yeah,
right?
please. If you have an idea or things that you want to discuss, please leave it in the comments and we'll read it and we will put it on this. So get ready for that. All right, you guys, here we go. Our very first pilot episode, we're going to spin the wheel and we're going to talk about...
That was a good spin.
Girl, what is my handwriting? What does that say?
You better turn around and
Manifestation.
Oh.
Yo, we're going in on the first episode. Oh my gosh. First of all, let me just start with this real quick because I saw the Science of Mind class that Petra did on Sunday. I went back and watched it. The difference between manifestation and demonstration. That blew my freaking mind. So I feel like before we even dive into manifestation, I want Petra to talk about that. Because I feel like demonstration, in a lot of ways, if you understand it, that is what leads to manifestation. So I want Petra to go off on this one first.
Okay. All right. And then Shakira, you jump right in here.
Yes.
So yeah, so from so the idea of demonstration when we do our spiritual work, and the idea of demonstration is that what we're doing in demonstration is that we are demonstrating our understanding and our use of universal principles. So if I use the law of attraction, or if I understand the law of cause and effect, or I understand that I'm simply using universal principles and power, even if I don't know what the name of it is, when I'm doing my spiritual work, whether I'm doing meditation, affirmative prayer, visualization, spiritual mind treatment, right? The demonstration is when I've done that so completely and I have so understood how these laws work that the completion of my spiritual work is, well, of course it's going to manifest, because I'm demonstrating my understanding of the law. I'm not wishing, I'm not hoping, I'm not pleading, I'm not manipulating, I'm not trying to figure it all out. I'm actually using the principles, right? The same way that I would use the principles of electricity or the principles of aerodynamics. I'm demonstrating my understanding and my use of it. And that's what then leads to the manifestation, which is actually the result, the outpicturing. And the manifestation actually has to happen in the space-time continuum. So it might not be instant. It might be a process of unfolding. It might be a process of personally growing or healing. It can be instant, absolutely. But when we say the demonstration is instant, it is because we've done that spiritual work to come to that place where we say, right, I've used the laws, I've aimed them at this particular thing, I've lifted my consciousness out of the habitual unconscious thought patterns, I am participating, co-creating in an intentional manner. Yes, yes, I expect my manifestation. In that moment, we've actually had an instant demonstration. We're demonstrating our understanding of the law. And I think so often, I think that in spirituality and science of mind, we can become a little superstitious, and we can think that we're using the law and actually we're doing what we were told to do, right? We don't necessarily understand what we're doing. And so, of course, when it doesn't work, then we get wigged out. So demonstration is what happens in consciousness. Manifestation then is the automatic result.
I would say too, Petra, that we can also demonstrate a lack of consciousness around a thing, in that if we're not paying attention to what we're creating in our lives, or what messages that we've decided to take in, and those ones that need to be broken down, those belief systems from our elders, or different experiences that really just don't serve us anymore, we can be manifesting our lives unconsciously. And so I agree with that. I agree with that whole definition. I'm just over here. I'm like, I feel like I'm in class. I need to just go ahead and pull this piece of paper out. When you get into spiritual work, you're just always learning. You stay green and growing, not ripe and rotting, is what my master coach would always say. And so I'm thinking about that, and I'm thinking about, how have I, or anybody out there in the audience, how have I created a life according to what I knew, but didn't go deeper into what I could know? What law have I not understood? What universal manifestation of life have I not taken the time to go deeper into? The principles or qualities of the divine. What is it that I need to go deeper into so that I understand the workings of it and can use it effectively? I know in our coursework, we've talked about, or Ernest Holmes talked about, utilizing those things. You mentioned the law of electricity. Well, an electrician knows the law of electricity and has so much more access to how it can work in your life and work effectively, and it would be the one you call in for the assistance, right? But if you don't know the law of electricity, I'm not calling you into my house to fix my electric issues. And I think that's also a thing we have to think about when we're calling people into our lives to do certain work for us and with us. How much do you know about this thing? Because if you only know what your uncle, brother, sister, cousin taught you, and that's just a real thing, right? Because that's what we have. Sometimes we only know what we've been told. We only know what we've experienced or what other people have experienced and relayed to us. And then we demonstrate that throughout without thinking about it. We start acting and moving in ways that aren't essentially who we are, or essentially what we believe.
Yeah, I love that demonstration of consciousness. We're constantly demonstrating our consciousness, which is our use and belief of the law, right? That was, yeah.
And the law, you mean the law of cause and effect?
Yes, the law that is the way in which the infinite unmanifest becomes manifest.
Yeah.
Right. It's a law that's orderly, that can be understood, that can be observed. It's the sum total of all the natural laws, or the natural laws are just simply ways in which we can see the way the law is outpicturing, and we extrapolate from that. If as above, so below, we can look at so below and see that there's an as above. And since even our quantum field, as freaky as it is, we are beginning to understand the ways in which it works. And or let me say this: even if we don't understand it, we're beginning to understand how we can use it. Right? I don't know how. I don't understand everything about my computer or my car, but I sure as heck have understood how to use it.
Yeah.
Right? And so we can see that everything works, even in chaos theory. Right? Under chaos is that implicit order that is identifiable. You can see it. So the law of cause and effect is that orderly way in which causal reality becomes manifestation.
Wow. So let's do this. Why don't we, let me give an example of a manifestation. And then Petra, I want you to break it down and go through the steps. I mean, just break it down and see, like, how do we get there? So for example, we are in a global pandemic. And it happened in 2020, and I'm a full-time actor. And when the lockdowns hit, the entire film industry, among other industries, were completely shut down. There were no more jobs, there were no auditions, there were just nothing. It was just completely stopped. And because of CSLDallas and the things that I've learned here, I didn't freak out. I didn't really panic. I just kind of did the work, and I just knew that it was not just going to be okay, but I was going to thrive during it. So for the first 2-3 months, of course, no auditions, nothing, no bookings, a couple of voiceover stuff, and then it. I mean, literally, it felt like just it came all of a sudden. I started. Not only was I auditioning, I was just booking left and right, over and over, and like these massive bookings started happening, and it started in June, and I remember like, who is doing shoots? I don't understand how these are happening. Why am I? Because all of my friends, acting friends, they're still not even seeing auditions happening, and I'm on set. With COVID restrictions, everybody in masks, the whole crew is in gloves, 6 feet distance. We all get our own dressing rooms. Like, it's super safe. There have been no outbreaks on these sets, and I'm working. So, okay, so literally, I did the work. I just knew that I wasn't just going to be fine. I was going to thrive, and I was going to stay healthy through this whole thing. And I knew this for my family as well as my friends. I had to know that for everyone around me, because it was a really scary time, but I just didn't let it like freak me out like I used to. If this happened 3 years ago, I would be a basket case. I know that about myself. And it turned out 2020 was actually was even better than 2019. It was one of the best years, in terms of work. So Peter, help me walk me through it. What was happening? How did that happen?
Shakira, you're going to help me on this, right?
Yeah,
So,
because I know what I was doing,
paraphrase.
but I know what I was doing, but I want you to walk through the process of like, how do you manifest?
well, I think that you have actually described the process incredibly well. One, you decide where you want to go. Two, you put your stake in the ground. Three, you become obsessed with your stake in the ground. Four, you don't let anything shake you. And if you do get shaken, which we all do along the way, we do not become panicked about the fact that we've gotten shaken. We do what we need to do to get back into the obsessed idea. I'm going to thrive through this. No, I'm going to thrive through this. I don't know how, I don't know what's going on, I don't know, but I am going to thrive through it, right? That's my stake in the ground. And I think sometimes we get confused that our manifestation always has to be a form. It can be a form, right? I mean, really, sure, if you want a car, a house, of course it can be a form. But usually it's so much more than a form, right? Your stake in the ground is, I'm going to thrive through this. That was the stake in the ground. And clearly it was having to do with work and money, right? It wasn't about health or relationships. It was, you clearly had an area of your life in which you were aiming that deliberate stake in the ground. And so I loved what Shakira said, we're demonstrating our consciousness. So that was the consciousness with which you engaged. And then, if there's a curveball thrown, or if there's something else, or it doesn't, you have a few months where there's nothing. But if our consciousness is, no, I'm going to thrive. I mean, it doesn't sort of matter how many curveballs or how long, because it must then manifest. The consciousness manifests, right? The demonstration is in consciousness, and then it's the law's job to figure out how. So you were getting all these shoots and all these things and all them, and you're like, what is happening? Where's this all coming from? We don't even have to know. That is what it means to have a universal law. I don't know how the electricity from the transformer comes and runs this computer that I'm on right now. That's the law's job. The law of electricity, that's its job, right? I have to be here and plug my computer in and be ready to use it. So that's how I would break that down. And we have techniques and tools and spiritual practices all along the way, right, to help at each moment depending on where we are in that manifestation process. So off the top of my head, that's how I would break that down.
That was
Shakira?
brilliant.
I agree with that. I would also add that, the conscious creation process can only go wrong in our own minds. And so if you're keeping your mind set, like Petra talked about your knowing, it's, to me, it articulated that there was no separation between you and good health. There was no separation between you and the money and the thriving, and if you really know it, that's what that knowing creates. It's I'm all in with this thing, and it's all in with me. And that's something I've been learning too in the process of Science of Mind with Dr. Petra and all of our wonderful teachers, right? It's once I know it, I embody that. And so as you embody that, you get more of what you are. You don't get more of what you want. You get more of what you are and what you decide to be in that conviction. And so this is how I see that playing out. And so I think if you were really holding on to like, I'm going to have a thriving life in the midst of this, of course the out picture would be all these darn things coming through, because you were just really set on that. And you would align yourself so much with that it had no choice but to be that. So
Wow.
I think that's wonderful, and I'm super excited for all of your creative endeavors this year.
When you said you are what you are, not what you want, that was so powerful. That kind of lit a little light bulb up here. That's so fascinating, because what I love that Petra said curveballs as well, because there were plenty of curveballs.
Right.
But what I've learned, especially actually directly from Petra, is when they come up, how do you recover from that? I know the answer. I'm going to say a little bit about it, and then I want Petra to elaborate on it.
No, good.
So when that curveball comes, when that condition or whatever it is shows itself, I immediately, Petra taught me to suddenly just be aware. Be aware of your thoughts, be aware of how you're reacting to it, and just look at it. And what I do, Petra said, when Petra taught it, she said, oh, how interesting that was my response, that's coming up in me. But I take another step and I go, oh, how cute that you're responding that way. Like you're falling into old thought patterns and old behavior. And I try not to judge myself anymore. I'm like, shame myself. So I immediately go, oh, how cute. Like, look at you. Come on now. You know better. And it kind of takes a charge out of it immediately. Whatever the curveball is, whatever happened, suddenly I'm not like this in it. I'm not completely enwrapped in it and freaking out about it. I can just go, boop. Oh, that's cute. Okay, you're spiraling a little bit. Notice that I'm spiraling. But what's the truth? What is the truth to be revealed here? And then from there, I get back to, girl, I'm going to thrive. And everything's fine again. So, Petra, go into that a little bit, because I learned that from you specifically.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the very thing, right? So what does it mean? We banner around this word consciousness, right? We're going to be conscious. We got to be conscious co-creators. We got to be, and consciousness leads us right into enlightenment. And then all of a sudden we have to think, we think we have to walk around in robes and be all spiritual all the time. And you can't swear anymore. And, you're going to live on the mountaintop. Well, yeah, not me. Sorry. And so what does it mean? What does it mean to become conscious? It means to become consciously aware of what's going on. So and then I'm learning how to be consciously aware at every level, right? I seek to be aware in the background of universality, because that's always happening. I seek to be aware of the moment through mindfulness and just be present and savoring and right engaged. And then I want to be conscious about what I'm demonstrating. What is my consciousness demonstrating? I want to be conscious about, wow, that was a whole train of fear thought I just went into. Mm-hmm. Is that what I want to manifest? Wow, that is a whole train of victim and blame. And okay, so what I do is I give myself permission to have a pity party. Mm-hmm. I am actually allowed to have my feelings, because we all have them, right? I get to have my little pity party. So I have a couple people that I call and I say, okay, I'm going to have a 2-minute whine. And then I'm allowed to say anything I want. I'm going to be allowed to be as unspiritual and victim-y and blamey as I want to be. I get to go, bleh, right? Because then I also get to hear it. And then I'm done. Because I know I actually don't want to manifest out of that space. I don't actually want my life to be, but I have to also be aware of what all of that is. When I'm really, really, really in it, and then I have to ask for a 5-minute wine. And it has to be with somebody who won't jump in the hole with me, right? But can hold that space for me and know that truth, for, know what's true for me. So we have to be able to feel our feelings around it. So, and then part of that awareness, I love that you say it's, oh, that's cute, right? I love that. And it takes all of that charge. How do we take responsibility without blame or shame? That's right, because I can't take responsibility for something that I'm not aware of. Now, I might not be responsible for how that crappy pattern got implanted, and might not be responsible for the other people's crappy patterns and stuff like that. But unless I take responsibility in the moment of that thing that I'm aware of, like, wow, I'm really spiraling here. If I'm not aware of it and don't take responsibility for it, do you see, I can't actually do anything about it because I'm not responsible.
Yeah.
Right. And that awareness is that first piece, is to stop and say, and then to realize, but that's really just a pattern. It's a false pattern about how one thinks about life that's not in alignment with these universal principles and how we actually understand life as creating. So then I have to sometimes I have to yank myself back over there, right? Or coach myself back over there, or get somebody else to coach me back over there.
Yeah. Shakira, what do you think? Like, what are your thoughts? What happened? Like, what is your process when a curveball pops up or a condition pops up that seemingly is not in line with your intention and the cause that you set? Like, what is your process in battling that?
I think Petra really hit it on the head, but I look at it from a position of divine parenting. Because if we take that ownership of our own selves, right, and we look at it, I heard the nurturing that comes out of that. Oh, that's cute. I heard the nurturing that comes out of that experience. And then I also believe it takes a village to raise a spiritual child, just as much as it takes a village to raise a regular one. And so what Petra talked about, people that you have to have in your corner that are okay with calling you on your BS after giving you an opportunity to whine and then telling you the truth. And I say BS in that we tend to do that BSing ourselves into something that isn't real, right? And so then it's like, okay, that's the story. Stop the story. Now what's the truth? And I'm thankful. That's kind of how I deal with my things, Oscar. I have a group of people that I can call on, that I can say, look, I'm going to say whatever I've got to say. And then they automatically will call me on my stuff. And they're like, okay, that's your story. Now, what's the truth? And I've had that. I tend to have elders around me. All of my friends happen to be elders. And I love it that way because they can tell me from their experience, hey, this may look this way, but you got to have a long-term view on the situation. And that always redirects me too. It's not having instantaneous gratification of feeling like I'm in the right, but it's also paying attention to the effects. Like we talked about in the very beginning with the impeachment and the meditation and the things that go on the mat, and those things transcending our own personal experience, but how do we contribute? And even these moments where we get upset about things or we get, bamboozled in some way or another, how we respond to that also contributes, right, to humanity and how we play this experience out. So yeah, I saw with Petra on that.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah, but it's a great thing to think about, because sometimes we think when we're going to be doing spiritual work and we've done our work and we're like on the road to manifestation, I think we can have these really false idea that it's just going to be this long, steady uphill climb towards whatever. And then when the curveballs happen, one of two things we can do is, well, the universe must not want me to have it. Like the universe really has a plan. Like the universe really cares about that. All that life wants to do is express as fully and completely as us as it possibly can. But we say that, right? Well, the universe must not want me to have it. Or somehow we say, well, it wasn't supposed to happen. Somehow it wasn't supposed to happen. So maybe I should change what I want. Well, you can, of course, always change your mind. Of course you can change your mind. But what I notice for myself is that I am the queen of rationalizing. I can
You want to compete about
rationalize
that?
anything. I can rationalize it. I can, and I can give it a spiritual schmear, or I can give it a, because of my parents schmear, or I can give it a, because of the situation in the world schmear, right? I can rationalize anything. And so, right. And so paying attention and being called on our bullshit is really, really, really important, because we can, and then we can also overlay or not clean out old religious doctrine that we don't realize we've simply put spiritual words on, but we're still actually living out the old spiritual doctrine. And so for all of those, things, right, and partly that's let me just say one other thing about that. The other thing that I find, shall I just say, spiritually annoying in some of the spiritual conversations is, oh, well, I'm having this experience, because I needed this lesson.
Oh.
As if someone out there said, well, Oscar, I'm going to teach you a lesson about whether or not you can thrive in a pandemic. Like, who's out there having that opinion about that you need this lesson, or even that you gave this lesson to yourself? Now, this does not mean that there isn't a lesson available. This does not mean that there isn't a lesson available, right? And that's the paying attention. Paying attention. Because what's happening is when my fear comes up or my doubt comes up, is I'm simply illuminating for myself where some of my old consciousness still resides. That's all I'm doing. And when I'm paying attention to, oh, wow, that is a belief that's still running back there. Oh, wow, that's a thought that I could really be that afraid, that I could be that separate, that I could fail that miserably. And so the lesson is in just simply being aware of that this old stuff is still hanging around. And then it's an opportunity to practice, as opposed to a lesson that somebody's giving us, right? It's an opportunity to practice. Okay, here I am. There's a curveball. I'm all of a sudden spinning out. I'm spinning out. Maybe I spin out for a day. Maybe I spin out for a month. Doesn't really matter. The moment that I'm aware again, right, it's an opportunity to practice. How do I bring myself back into, is this the spiritual truth? And what is the spiritual truth? So I like to think about it in terms of practice, as opposed to this sort of never-ending idea that, well, and the lessons always seem to be because we're wrong and we need to be fixed. There's something broken about us, which there's not. We're not broken in any way, shape, or form. We may be ignorant of the truth. We may be running out of old patterns, but the truth of our being isn't broken ever. And so there you go. So that's my little soapbox about that.
Wow. Petra, I love that so much. So my Petra's mowing his lawn. It's like 30 degrees outside. Why is he? Do you hear that? I'm like, what's happening?
Mowing the lawn like it's growing, like the lawn is actually growing.
Yeah, they're actually mowing their lawn. It's the dead of winter. What's happening out there?
That is so funny.
There is something. So when I first got to CSLDallas, one of the first talks that I heard was Petra, and it probably seemed like, just another slide to people in the sanctuary, but I remember just like, I could feel my face melting when she was going through this quote. And I forgot who it was by. I should have taken a picture of that darn quote. But she said, turn a thing into a thought. Change your thought, and the law automatically changes the thing.
Thomas Troward.
Thomas freaking Troward. I was like, what? So I feel like that perfectly encapsulated. I was like, oh, that's what I want to be doing. That's what I need to be doing. So yeah, I feel like that for me really kind of upped my spiritual game, was when I saw that quote. I was like, oh, my God, it's so simple.
Right.
It's so simple.
Because the manifestation process is in fact automatic. right? The law, it's just the law doing what it does. What the law does takes a cause and brings about the appropriate effect.
Yeah.
That's what it does.
Wow.
So when we say change a thing, change the thought, right? We change a thing into thought, meaning we change the experience or the expectation or the freak out or the whatever we have. What we do is we change it into, well, what's the belief? What's the pattern? What's the thing that's running here in the background? That's what that means, to change it into a thought, right? And then we get to say, as Shakira said, well, is this the spiritual truth? Oh, wait. No, this is the spiritual truth. By God, I'm going to thrive. I don't care what other people are doing. I don't care how afraid I am. I am freaking going to thrive. Well, now that I'm going to work with that so much that I begin to believe that that's actually the in alignment with how the universe wants to show up as me in that thriving, being alive experience. Now, the law is the one that's going, oh, well, then here's this audition, and here's that audition, and here's this other thing that you never thought about, and here are all these other things, because it's just automatically then has to now manifest this new, and I want to expand it beyond just like an intellectual, oh, now I'm having an intellectual thought. I'm going to affirm I'm thriving, I'm thriving, I'm thriving, I'm thriving. Yeah, not so much, right? It is actually a thought plus a feeling, an intentionality, which basically then becomes a belief. When in metaphysics, we use the word thought, it really means something that we have come to believe to be true. There's a pandemic, there's not going to be any work for me. Is something we've come to believe to be true.
Right.
Or there's a pandemic, and by God, I'm going to use these principles and I'm going to thrive anyway. If I come to believe that to be true, right? The law has no opinion about it. It will it's the law of electricity doesn't care whether it's the lights or the laptop or the heat or the gas or no, it can't be a gas stove. Mixing metaphors. So, right. And so that's the part that I love, is that the work's here. It's so here. But I don't have to manipulate all the circumstances, and I don't have to make this person different. And I don't have to, figure all that stuff. Sure, I have to walk in the world. No question about it. And what I do is part of the outpicturing, and the law might be nudging me and pushing me in different directions, bringing things to me, the law of attraction, all of that, blah, blah, blah. So of course, and I have to grow into the person who can actually believe that and see that in myself, imagine that that's the case. And all of the work that I'm doing to create that unequivocal cause, and the law just goes, oh, okay.
Right. And so for those who are new tuning in, when we say the law, we are talking about the law of cause and effect, not the law of attraction. Because that's what I mistook it as that. And Petra had to teach me, like, no, we're talking about the law of cause and effect. Right. So when we say the law, that's what we're talking about.
Good. And the law of attraction is just one of the many ways in which the law of cause and effect does its work in the world. Right.
Right.
I'm sitting here thinking about the law of cause and effect, and I'm like, the way I see it in my mind is like this. It's like your spiritual MC. Like, this is your hype man. This is like, you said you want it. I said, yeah.
I love that. Your spiritual
in my
MC.
Head, and I just feel really goofy about it. But I'm like, yeah, this is what it is.
We need to make t-shirts.
Throw me a beat. Yeah.
Shakira, we need to make t-shirts. Yeah. The universe is your spiritual MC.
So awesome.
I love that.
Yes.
Right?
Oh my God, that's amazing. Why? Because Petra always says, like, the universe is you have the entire universe behind you. It is conspiring for you at all times. It is conspiring for you, never against you. So when you say something, I am this or I am that, the universe is simply saying, yeah. Every time. So be careful what you're thinking and saying, because it's going, yeah, I agree. I'm conspiring for you. I love that. So I love that you said.
I love that. I know. I love that.
Oh my God. So we're running really close on time, but I just have to ask. So we talked about it's not just like a thought or to get to belief, to get that into a belief. So let's break that down just a little bit more. How do we get to that point? Because this is where our spiritual practice comes in. This is where our spiritual tools really help.
Right. And it's really where the rubber meets the road.
Exactly.
Right, because just saying it isn't enough. You can affirm it all you want. It just saying it isn't enough. It's got to be something that becomes actual and real to us. But it doesn't always have to. We don't always have to feel or sense or know the form or the end result in a form. And I think that trips a lot of people up. And so for me, there's many tools, many tricks, many things. One of the if I'm really not yet believing something that I want to manifest, right? Because I clearly don't believe it because I haven't manifested it and I'm struggling with manifesting it. Instead of saying I have the thing, or, you know, the law is going to bring me this thing, or any of those kinds of things, I begin working with this idea of I am a person who has or does this thing. Which means that I have to become inside of me the kind of person who has a healthy relationship, who thrives in a pandemic, who has a cool convertible BMW car. That took me 6 months, right? It's right. And so there's something so powerful because I'll just use that as an example. For me, I've had convertibles in the past. I had a Miata, and I've I had motorcycles for years and years, and then I got then I had a child, then I got the sedan, the Ford, carted around all the friends and all that, did the whole thing, and then I was like, I'm free. And I decided I didn't want a motorcycle because it's too damn hot in Dallas. I had a motorcycle and it's too damn hot. I had to sell it again because I just didn't ride it enough. So I decided that I wanted a convertible. Well, I do spiritual work, and so that doesn't necessarily mean it's that it's the most lucrative work in the world. And although it certainly has supported me my entire working career and raised a family on it. But I had a Miata in the past, and I've always wanted, my first car was a Volkswagen Beetle. And so I thought, I might have a convertible Beetle. That'd be kind of cool. I could drive around in my little convertible Beetle and, and so I was playing all these games with myself and I've always, I'm German. And so the BMW, I always wanted the chainless shaft driven BMW motorcycle. And I thought, I could have a BMW convertible. Yeah, but what will people think? Well, how much money do they think I'm going to spend on that? What will they think about me as a spiritual person? And I've been all about this material thing. And oh God, I just was having it. Okay, I'll just have a cute little Miata because that's the poor man's convertible, right? That's what they say about the Miata. And I was like, okay, so a friend had a Miata that he was wanting to sell and, used Miata he was wanting to sell. I was like, okay, great. And so he let me borrow it for 2 weeks to drive it around. And after 2 weeks, first of all, it had a dent in it. It actually had almost a hole, a small, but, body damage. And do you know how freaking low a Miata is to the ground? Well, I'm not 25 anymore. I don't know about this. I'm not sure about this. And my wife kept saying, so what about that BMW? And after the summer of driving that car around, I stopped talking about it with anybody. I just stopped talking about it with anybody. And she would say, are we going to go look at cars this weekend? I'd be like, no. A month would go by. Are we going to look at cars this weekend? No. Okay, so are we going to look at cars? It was Thanksgiving. A couple weeks before Christmas, are we going to look at cars? The day after Christmas, she said, there's sales right now. Are we going to go look at cars? Are you going to get a car? What are you going to do? And I said, yeah, we're going to go to this place, this lovely upscale used car place, because I like for somebody else to take the depreciation and then for me to buy it. I really like that part. And so she said, oh, why are we going there? Oh, because they have 2 BMWs. So I went there. They had 2 BMWs. I said to the salesperson, "Don't show me anything with a black interior. Who wants a black interior in the Dallas, freaking Texas, right? I want a light colored interior, and I want it blue." So they actually had 2 of them, and I drove them both around. They had tiny, tiny mileage. They were exactly in my price range, and I bought them that day. So I went to one dealer. I looked at 2 cars, and I bought them that day. And she looked at me like, "What is happening?" It took me 6 months in the privacy of my mind and heart to get over worrying about what people were going to think, worrying about my own poverty consciousness, quite frankly. It's, it's the poor man's car. It's why would I, and then of course I spent the next 6 months telling everybody, well, it's a used convertible BMW. It actually cost me less than my brand new Honda, because I wanted everybody to be sure that I didn't go hog wild on this material thing. And then I had to make myself stop doing that. Stop it. Stop it. I had to, and it's okay. It's a stupid example. And usually we use material examples because you can, they're concrete. You can point to them. I didn't have it, and then I had it, right? But it's not about getting and acquiring and acquisition. I really thought, well, this is probably my last convertible. I really want to have an electric car next, and this is probably my last convertible. And so I wanted to have a little fun with it. I gave myself permission to do that. But it took me 6 months in the privacy of my own consciousness, not talking to anybody else about it ever, to become a person, a person who is a co-spiritual director of a spiritual community who had a fun BMW convertible car. That's like a tiny little example. It took me 5 years to become a person who could have a healthy relationship. Right? I mean, so we can do it with anything, but that making it believable, right? I have to believe it to be true. And when I believed it to be true, I went to one place, I looked at 2 cars, and I walked out with the car that I wanted at the price that I wanted, with such ridiculously low miles. It wasn't even funny. So how do we believe something? That's that work, right? Treatment, spiritual mind treatment, sitting on the mat, walking around, being inspired by others, seeing other people's demonstrations, but it's here. Yeah. It's here. And then the manifestation is an expression of who we are. It's not, I'm going to get a BMW and then I'm going to be happy. Right? Exactly. That does not work. Yeah. Let's just get that off the table. Yeah. We don't manifest things so that we can be happy. Exactly. Right. We should just no, that is you'll manifest all kinds of stuff, and then you'll have all that stuff and you'll still not be happy. Right. So true. Oh my gosh, that was so epic. You guys, were out of time for today. This was so much fun. Listen, if you like this video, if you like hanging out with us, give us a like, give us a subscribe, because we got spiritual content happening throughout the week on YouTube. And also, if you want to learn more about us and what we're talking about and our principles and our teachings, check out CSLDallas.org. All of the information is there. You got bios of all of us there as well. You can always check us out on social media and write us if you have any questions, and we'll respond to you as quick as we can. Listen, we love you guys. We're happy that you found us, that you found your tribe. You can catch us throughout the week. Tons of stuff happening at the CSL Dallas Center for Spiritual Living. We love you so much. Thank you for hanging out with us, you guys. We'll see you next week, next Tuesday, 1 p.m.